to be episode 3, but I lost a file last week on my computer, so that's my bad. As a result, we're going to sort of go through everything that's happened with the Ohio State basketball season since last time we were just previewing the whole season in general. We're going to touch on Illinois State. We're going to touch on the UMass-Lowell game. Then we'll go a little bit further with the Morehead State game just recently, and then preview Alabama A&M. I also got to go and see Bowen Hardman 2022 basketball commit this week, so we'll touch on that as well. Just those little things are what's going to go on in today's show. But first, we have my co-host with me, Matt Goldman. Matt, how is the great state of New Jersey, and how you living after your Giants took the lead in the NFC East this week?
New Jersey's cold. I mean, it's not snowing like it's Ohio, but it's cold, and don't love the cold. But I mean, I go to Ohio State, so I'm obviously I know the weather well. And Giants, I'm happy right now, but this is where the schedule picks up. They play the Seahawks, Ravens, Cardinals, Browns, Cowboys to round up the season. So the Giants can get 2 wins out of those games. I think that will secure them a spot. I don't know if it's the best thing for them as they're trying to potentially get a quarterback for next year's draft or some high-level player, but hey, I like the progress. I like seeing what Joe Judge has done, so can't be mad about that.
Yeah, I saw somewhere that just by taking the division lead, they dropped from like 6th to 8th in the draft standings, which would be brutal.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the 19th pick overall, just because you won the division, then you lose to, I think they're supposed to play the Rams currently as their team in the playoffs. I mean, and they played tight with the Rams last time, but the Rams are very good. They got their weapons on offense, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, 2 great tight ends at Higbee and Everett. So I'm not expecting a Giants win because expectations aren't supposed to be that the Giants are going to go in and beat an opponent that comes out of the NFC West. So I don't know how to feel, but I kind of like the playoffs, honestly. Like being able to brag to my friends that the Giants made the playoffs, that's pretty cool. So sticking with that for now.
All right. We'll go into the Illinois State game because you guys obviously did not come here to listen to me and Matt talk about the Giants and the NFC East. So this is the first game, obviously, Illinois State was, and they had a great stretch right at the beginning to go up 22-0. You saw a lot. You saw a lot that game from Justice Suing. You saw a ton that game from guys. Really, the whole backcourt. I think we saw the first of what's been a pattern in Dwayne's games so far this season. We'll touch on that. With the big thing being efficiency when you're going 4 from 9 from field goal, but that's sort of how the season's gone. I guess that's how you play with a guy like Dwayne. It was also great to see you guys. I think Zed Key and both Zed Key and Eugene Brown didn't really get some pub when they came in because they weren't the highest rated guys. But I think we both saw some stuff from them in that first Illinois State game that was like, oh, these guys are actually like, these aren't redshirt guys. These are like, they're role players already in year one. Other than that, I thought defense was a huge thing you saw against Illinois State. Not only just team defense, a lot of help defense looked great. I think the shooting numbers obviously need to go up, but that's something that we see progress. Matt, what were your quick takeaways from the Illinois State game last week?
Yeah, Buckeyes opening game in the season, 94-67, and Buckeye fans got to see what Justice Suing is all about. The transfer from Cal. He was a 3-star. He only had one offer coming out of high school, and that was Cal. So I find it shocking that he's now ended up at this place. And he's 6'7" forward. When Coach Holtman's in the press conference, he's a combination of Jayshawn Tate and K. Bates-Diop. I was like, what? That's like a very unique player that Ohio State's never had. And to be honest, I didn't believe Coach Holtman. Like, I thought it was just, I didn't think that was going to happen, that we were going to see Justice come out and score 19 the first game and almost get a double-double with total of 8 rebounds. So he was my biggest takeaway from that game, but also just the consistency from E.J. Liddell, kind of picked up from last year. We're still seeing an E.J. Liddell who's playing solid, who's great on offense, great in the paint, aggressive, and just the front court impressed me overall because I think Kyle Young also played well. He had a quiet 8 points, but Kyle Young is still one of the premier forward centers you'll see in the Big Ten. I think veteran experience, he's got all that down. So I think the front court really impressed me, and that was my biggest takeaway. And you said defense. Defense looked great. No disrespect to Illinois State and who the opponent was, but thought the defense looked phenomenal and that they all were getting to their assignments well. There wasn't much sloppiness there. They were getting the turnovers when they needed. Defensive rebounding, they out-rebounded by a ton. So from Illinois State, that was what I kind of liked from them, and yeah.
All right, moving on to UMass-Lowell. It was a game. It had its ups and downs. They ultimately ended up finishing off. I thought it was funny after with everything that's been going on with the Michigan football season. Everybody likes to compare. Michigan is liking to move on to their basketball team, which has been talented under Juwan Howard, and they were making a lot of jokes. If you go on find some message boards, they like to make jokes that Ohio State was in a close game with UMass-Lowell, but that same night, Michigan actually went to overtime with an 0-3 Oakland team that got 100 put up on them by Xavier the opening game. So it was just funny to see that. But going on to UMass-Lowell, I think we talked about it with Dwayne in the first game, but it was efficiency. It was 7 for 17, which, I mean, in the result doesn't look bad. But, I mean, the shooting numbers, him combined with all the guys really made that look absolutely atrocious. 3 for 11 from 3. Free throw numbers actually weren't overall that bad, 78%, which I believe was right around maybe a little up from the first game against Illinois State. But I think this is what you can see from I think this is why we talked about in our preview, or what we will talk about when we talk about the Big Ten even more, is if this team doesn't have consistent shooting, you're going to see some games get really close, or even some games against more talented teams like in Illinois, maybe in Iowa, become bigger losses just because this team doesn't, like, when Dwayne's on, he can be one of the better shooters in the Big Ten. So can Justin Arns. I think Justice Stewing can be a decent 3-point shooter, and so can CJ Walker. Eugene Brown obviously was known for his 3-point shot coming in. Jimmy Sotos is another guy that I think they would probably like to see him take a few shots from 3. But when this team doesn't shoot threes very well, it can be a rough night. But it was good to see them pull this out against UMass-Lowell, because this is a game they could not afford to lose with the season sort of being condensed, with everything sort of moving at a different pace than it has. To lose a game like this can really affect everything in the Big Ten, especially since we'll talk about once we get into the Big Ten. The Big Ten schedule is they have a stretch and they have an opportunity. If you look at this, if they can get past this North Carolina game, they can have an electric start in the Big Ten with teams like Purdue and a lot of the bottom feeders coming up right away. But to see the shooting numbers against UMass-Lowell was alarming. It was good to see him come out with a win. You saw another good performance from Justice. Dwayne put up 21, but like we talked about, it was 7 for 17, which doesn't scream efficiency. And I think we'll talk about that again with Morehead State. And I think it's just something that we're gonna ride and go with Dwayne this season. That's just how basketball has been going for Dwayne recently. It was a good game from CJ Walker, and I think it's something that we can really look forward to. Even when his shot isn't falling, 2 for 7 from the field goal range, but he still went 9 of 10 from 3 free throws. So he's going to get to the line. He's going to get into these point guards and get them fouled, which will be interesting to see when they go up maybe against an Illinois, like we talked about. Can he get Ayo Dosunmu in some foul trouble and make this a little bit closer game? Maybe that's something we can go on. But the UMass-Lowell game, nothing was super crazy. It was pretty standard. I mean, you wish it would be more of a blowout win, but they played a tough team, and I think we might see better performances when it comes to their conference for UMass-Lowell. I'll sort of track them and see how they go for the rest of the season. But Matt, what were your thoughts on the UMass-Lowell game?
Well, this UMass team, they're not that bad. Obadiah Noel is projected to potentially be a first-round to early second-round pick next year in the NBA draft, who is their guard who scored 15 in that game. But to the Ohio State side, it got close. It got too close for comfort for at least me. I don't understand how, when you have a total of 18 3-point attempts shot, that 11 of them are from Dwayne Washington. Dwayne, if you're hot, keep shooting. But if you're not, like, why? It didn't make sense to me why he kept shooting and he went 3 for 11. Like, that did not go well for Ohio State. Just the percentage there was not on point. And 4 of the 5 stars did go 10 plus in the game. And it just showed that CJ Walker's consistency is still, he kind of left his mark from last year a little bit, just kind of like EJ Liddell. CJ really showed that he still knows how to lead this team. He's a leader on and off, and he's just consistent. He contributes to this team no matter what, offense, defense. He does whatever he needs to do. And that was the biggest takeaway for me, especially because he played 34 minutes, the second highest on the team that day. Something else that kind of stuck out to me is Jimmy Sotos didn't shoot anything. He's been really quiet for Buckeye fans this entire time. I don't know if I'm concerned because he's still adjusting the system. He literally just found out weeks ago that he would be able to play this season. So I understand the mentality stuff might not be there for him, but it's a little concerning when they only played 4 deep in that game off the bench, and the bench went 3 for 6, all the makes coming from Zed Key. 3 for 6, all from one player out of the 4 bench players. That is not good. We had 8 bench points the entire time. So the depth was also a concern, just because it kind of baffled me to see that Justin Arns, Jimmy Sotos, or Eugene even didn't make any shots that game. And which honestly, I think the bench not being able to play that deep kind of had an effect for the Buckeyes that game. But I was listening to Seth Greenberg last night talk about Ohio State's backcourt, about CJ and Dwayne, how they're one of the most competitive in the Big Ten. And it kind of got me like, they haven't been the most consistent. When one's on, but when the other is on, the other's on. So it was a little interesting to me. But anyways, overall, the team played all right, a little closer to comfort. Would like to see more bench depth.
Yeah, the bench depth is something that you definitely want to see. I think we mentioned those 3 names: Jimmy Sotos, Justin Arns, and Eugene Brown. I think the one that I'm more concerned about than all of them would probably be Justin Arns, because I think we know what we need to get from Justin Arns, and I think Justin should know what we need to get from him. The fact that, let me pull it up again to double check, that he took 1 shot in that game. I don't know if that's system. I don't know if that's how close the game was, but you would like to see. We'll talk about with Bowen Hardman later to finish off the episode. But when a guy like that is known for a 3-point shot, I have to think that they're going to get more looks for him. I don't know if he just passed him up. And I think that's something you see with shooters commonly, is they pass up these looks thinking that they're going to be better, but they're designed looks to get the shot up, and he didn't take them, and either he didn't take them or he just, I don't know what it was. We need to see more shots go for Justin Arns, and especially if he thinks that he can get him to fall. Going on to the next game, we'll probably spend a little bit more time on this game since it was recent, just yesterday as we're recording this. Morehead State, which I think was probably, I don't know, Illinois State was very sound. I didn't get to watch much of the Morehead State game. I was watching my Steelers play 11-0, beat the Ravens, hopefully lock up the division. But
have that in there, don't you?
Yeah, first win came against the Giants too, by the way. But we'll keep bumping on. Okay, I missed much of this game. Matt can probably go farther in depth than I can, but just looking solely at the box score, I think between this game and the UMass-Lowell game, we sort of saw it. When it comes down to crunch time, I don't know if we know who this exact guy is yet, but I think we know it's probably going to be Justice or it's going to be CJ. I don't think Dwayne is that guy, because we see it again right here, 4 for 11, another 30% shooting at night, and let's see, 3 for 6 from 3, so 50% from the 3-point line, but you took 6 attempts. It's just the efficiency with Dwayne. I was looking at the box scores from some of the 4-game losing streak they had last year. And when it comes to Dwayne, you need him to at least be not a negative. As so long as Dwayne's not a negative, he can at least be a positive presence on the court. You have something. But when Dwayne is a negative and he only had 1 turnover, he had 4 assists. So that's huge in the Morehead State game, because he was obviously a positive. Despite the lack of efficiency on shot attempts, he was a positive. But so long as Dwayne is staying in that positive to neutral category, this team can soar very high because of the talent it has all around the court. But I want to see more from Dwayne when it comes to being efficient. I don't know if it's something that I have to imagine that it's something the coaching staff is telling him to get his shots up, and that's perfectly fine if that's what's in the game plan, because he's probably the guy on the team that they would trust most to knock him down. The one big thing that, not to harp on Dwayne again, but it's not just when 3-point shots either. It's a lot of uncontrolled flails to the rim that don't look good. And I hope we can see more from Dwayne, because I really like him as a player. It's been a slow start for him. Other than that, we saw another double-digit performance from Justice too, and all the starters got in double digits. As one of the bigger Kyle Young fans here, you got to see your guy Kyle go for 10. I think he hit a 3-pointer as well, so 1 for 3. 1 second, Matt. Hold on. All right, we're back.
I just noticed that it wasn't recording. I was about to say something before starting.
Yep, we're back. Okay. We're back with Justice. Sorry, we have some dogs in my house right now, and I told Matt we had to pause it real quick. I'm going to pass it to Matt to talk about the Morehead State game, because I just went off for a little bit. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so you mentioned all 5 starters got into double figures, and you mentioned a big Kyle Young fan here, so I was very impressed with Kyle Young and his performance. Kyle still continues to show his consistent talent, and playing 28 minutes yesterday, almost getting a double-double, 1 rebound away. He was 10-9, very impressive. And I think what strikes me the most is the way Kyle gets aggressive on the court, especially on the defensive side, when he's boxing out, when he's playing. I mean, his arms are always up. He's doing whatever he needs to do. I think it's just being there a long time, being in Holtman's system. He knows what he's doing. He knows the defense well, just like CJ. I think him and CJ both are leading this team and doing what they need to do. But it just impresses me everything that Kyle does, that he's picking up on everything he's seen around the court. He's communicating well. You could hear it even on TV because one, the Corvallis Center is pretty small that they're playing in, no fans, so you could hear the enhanced audio on the broadcast, which was interesting. That I guess that's the pro of having no fans in an arena. But Kyle Young, overall, he just impresses me with everything he does on the offensive side to the defensive side. He gives second chance points. He gives opportunities for this Buckeyes team that maybe Caleb Wesson didn't do in the past, because Caleb might have shot it, started drifting back towards defense and then doing his thing. But Kyle gives the team opportunities. He's giving them more opportunities than you would expect. And so is EJ Liddell. He really impresses me what both of them do. And I think just their strong presence down low is really what's helping this Buckeye team with a smooth transition game in game. And again, you mentioned Dwayne, 4 for 11 in this game, field goals overall, not the hottest. So wasn't super thrilled with Dwayne. And I don't know if it's just like first few game jitters or something like that, even though he's been here for a while, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But yeah, it amazed me to see what Dwayne was doing. And it just kind of didn't feel like he had double digits. It didn't feel like he scored 11 points. It felt like he had 5 points. It felt like he threw the ball. He just goes up to the rim, and he kind of doesn't really care where the ball goes, honestly. He's just trying to draw the foul, but sometimes the fouls aren't going to get called. Another thing that I want to talk about is Justin Arms. Does he do anything else besides shoot a three? Is what I just see on the court. He does this little fake, and he goes up as a left-handed shooter, does this one dribble to the left, and then shoots. I don't know where the value is for Justin Arms besides three-point shooting. I know it's a game of shooting now. I know as the game evolves, it's going to be more three-point shooting as we see. Got centers getting taller, learning how to shoot. I mean, you see with Chet Holmgren, huge, and he can shoot and all that. Number one recruit in the country, but Justin Arms, 15 minutes of it. He played 15 minutes yesterday over Jimmy Sotos, who I would expect to be more reliable in that sense, to do a little more for the Buckeyes. Justin Arms has always been a little question mark for me, because I don't know how to feel about him, especially because he did score 3 threes, but when it comes to the Big Ten play, it comes to the postseason, we're going to need more off our bench besides Zed and Eugene, because that's not what we can rely on, and Jimmy as well. Can't rely on 3 guys. Justin needs to start playing more defense. He needs to be more versatile in offense. I just think overall, if we had Justin be doing a little more, it's going to benefit the team in the long run so much more, because Zed Key can't be in there for more than 20 minutes in the game off the bench. I just don't think. Then that shows that there's something obviously wrong with this one of the 5 starters. But Zed and Eugene show that they are reliable, consistent, and need to be in the Buckeyes rotation every game. Justin Arms, is still a question mark for me. I go back and forth with him all the time. I like him when he makes his threes, but when he's just missing assignments on defense and not doing much else, I don't really like him. So overall, 77-44, box score shows for itself. Obviously, the Buckeyes just outscored them. They played better. They held all their starters except one scored under 10. They all scored 3 points of starters. They went 3-3-3, 11-3. So, I mean, the defense is obviously there, but yeah, those are my impressions of Ohio State. Hope I wasn't too hard on Justin Arms right there, but had to feel to vent a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the difficult thing, is because you need Justin on the court to knock down threes. Because you look at the 3-point per shooting percentage, Dwayne shot 3 for 6, Justin shot 3 for 6. Everybody else in the game, including CJ Walker and Justice Stewing, were 1 for 3. The consistency of 3-point shooting outside of Dwayne and Justin is just not that high with the other guys, so that's the role he gives. But I will agree that I think you need to just see more from him, like expand the game. When he's like you talking about, when he's just a corner spot up guy to shoot threes, it doesn't bring you anything. Like that doesn't help you bring a whole game together. And I think we just need to see more from really the whole shooting performance, regardless of what guy it is, because eventually they're going to get into a game where they need to be able to go shot for shot. And I just don't know. They can get their twos. They can get some post work. But when the bigs get bigger, can Kyle and can Kyle and EJ get the post work the same way? I'm not exactly sure that that's 100% the case. So I think you're going to need to see Dwayne. You're going to need to see Justice. You're going to need to see CJ and Justin all hit more consistent shots. And I don't know if I mentioned it already or if I mentioned it while we were not recording, but one of the guys, I think we started to see it in this game and also a lot of the UMass-Lowell game. But when it comes to the crunch time guys, and we're still trying to figure that out because last year was Caleb Wesson. But when it comes to who the Buckeyes go to in crunch time, it's going to come down to, I think, Justice and CJ. And I think right now I'd give the lead to CJ as the guy that they're going to go to in crunch time, specifically because he can get to the rim and make free throws regardless. And I think he's probably the better three-point shooter of the two. Other than that, there wasn't a ton that I was able to catch from the Morehead State game or take away. Once again, defense looked good. You're talking low shooting percentages all around from Morehead State, 25 for the total game and 33% from three, which isn't good. But however, Ohio State shooting percentages weren't anything to write home about. 38 from three-point isn't horrible, but when you factor in that Justin and Dwayne bring that up from shooting 50%, that sort of skews it a little bit. 44% for the game is something I think overall, if you talk to the coaches, they probably want to get that up. But turnovers were high, and that's something that's obviously going to have to go down. Other than that, not a ton to talk about. We're going to move on to Alabama A&M, who's another out-of-conference game for the Buckeyes. Alabama A&M has played one game against Samford. They're 1-0, and they've won the game by 2 points, 78-76. They had Jalen Johnson, a 6'7" power forward, for their team go for 28 points and 7 rebounds. So this is going to be a big game. Hopefully we can see something from both Eugene and Kyle. And I think specifically Eugene, because when you look at their roster through and through, they have a legitimate 6'10", close to 7 foot center out of actually just up here in Ohio, Middletown High School. His name's EJ Williams. And so it's going to be a game where we need to see something from EJ and Kyle. Other than that, they had a guy by the name of Garrett Hicks, who's one of their backcourt players, who's a 6 foot guard. So it's going to likely be CJ Williams' assignment. CJ Walker's assignment. He went for 18 as well. Other than that, I don't think we have a large sample size to really talk much about Alabama A&M, but we'll preview the game. Obviously, you want to see all around talent, good defense from the Buckeyes, which I think something they've been able to hang their hat on for the most part. That's what kept them in. It's what was able to pull them out through the UMass-Lowell game. It's been what's able to just really give them the edge in some of these games they played against lesser opponents, especially Illinois State and a lot of Morehead State. So I think you're going to see the defense be the same way, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can hold it up against a team that's going to have 2 big guys, not necessarily better talented big guys, but 2 guys that can challenge them height for height, inch for inch, pound for pound. That's really the matchup I'll be looking forward to. And like we talked about with Morehead State, can we knock down 3-pointers consistently? Can we shoot above 40%? Maybe that's the goal you're trying to hit, is go above 40% from 3-point line. That's my just quick look at it from looking at the Stanford box score. What are your thoughts on Alabama A&M, Matt?
Yeah, so I got a chance to actually watch their highlights on YouTube quickly, and Jalen Johnson, that guy is a very good basketball player, to say the least. Maybe it was just Stanford making him look good, but, I mean, Jalen Johnson went 13 for 17, 28 points, total of 7 rebounds. A very good box score, in my opinion. And overall, he's a great player, and I think it's going to be a matchup that EJ or Kyle is going to have to cover, and it's going to be interesting to see. Potentially even Justice might be on him. They play 3 guards, actually, this team, so A&M. So they play a little smaller than Ohio State, so it will be interesting to see who matches up on who. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes Johnson and Justice or Johnson and Kyle. I'm not sure what's going to happen yet. But this team overall, from what I gauged, is they are really good at boxing out. They are really good at rebounding. That is their strength. They had 39 rebounds in the game, 32 defensive rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds. So I think that's something Ohio State has been very good at consistently, getting those defensive rebounds and not allowing offensive rebounds to happen. This is going to be a good matchup, especially in the front court, about getting on the boards, getting the paint, points in the paint. It will be interesting to see how Ohio State matches up with a smaller guard team, and they're quick as well. They're very quick on the court, very sound, and yeah, it was a close game, but they looked pretty polished, honestly. It was just they kind of ran away with the score in the second half. They weren't a first half team. They were down 43-32 in the first half, so There's some struggles there offensively getting started against Stanford. Alabama A&M took it away, and I think you mentioned turnovers as well, just getting on top of that. But this is a really quick team. I think Ohio State, yeah, they got speed. Yeah, they're very athletic. They're, again, the Big Ten. They're some of the best athletes in the country. I just think they're going to be a little they might underestimate this team a little bit. I think that's going to be something that Coach Holman, I'm sure, has been saying, respect all the opponents. All these opponents are good. None of these opponents are bad. That we have to make sure, just because they're a smaller school, just because they don't have the talent that we have, potentially the athleticism, but they're not a good team. We've seen some games go close. You mentioned the Michigan game that Michigan fans want to go over Ohio State about and all that. You never know what's going to happen. College basketball, college football, all these college sports. 2020 is a weird year. Anything can happen at this point. So I'm just hoping to see that that Ohio State, Kyle Young, Justice, EJ hold their ground and don't allow Jalen Johnson to have another 28-point game for A&M this week.
Yeah, you mentioned rebounding there, and obviously, like we talked about their post play, it's going to be big. But also, I mean, EJ's obviously a sophomore, but this is a very young team when you talk about Alabama A&M. The Hicks gentleman that we mentioned, that guy that put up 18 points for them against Stanford, is a sophomore. Jalen Johnson is a sophomore. Their center that put up that is also a large man. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, so I'm going to ramble on until I find the roster. His name is
EJ Williams.
EJ Williams. He is also a sophomore. Like I said, he's from Ohio. Jalen Johnson from Indiana. Maybe they'll get some extra juice from coming up here and playing against Ohio State. But other than that, I think you want to see another big win for Ohio State. Beat a team that they should. Show that they can defend bigger posts and show that they can out-rebound those guys. Maybe we see a little more Zed Key, because I think this is sort of a game with a legitimate 6'10" center that he might play a role. Other than that, I'll touch on it since I do a lot of recruiting around here. Two big things. I guess one huge thing has sort of happened since we last talked, and that was Ohio State picking up the commitment of Bruce Thornton in 2022. Of course, Bruce wanted to do it on Thanksgiving Day because recruits love the holidays for commitments, and it's always funny to see it happen. But Bruce is a talented guy, and I think he was a guy, when you ask Ohio State who was the top guy on their board for the point guard position, it was going to be Bruce. There was a guy, they obviously offered Sky Clark that moved from California to Tennessee, and Coach Jake Diebler, who recruits Bruce as well, is very well known in the state of Tennessee, but he's also very well known in the South. For those of you who don't know, maybe we have some Cavs fan on here. He recruited Darius Garland, a 5-star point guard, out of Brentwood, Tennessee, to Vanderbilt. That's probably his best recruiting win ever, and he's able to sort of not that same caliber as Bruce isn't a 5-star yet on the composite. I'll give you rivals. He is ranked as a 5-star, and that's fair. But he's a top 30 guy. He fits right into what they want, and I think we sort of talked about it throughout a lot of the summer, and I even talked about it a lot. I figured they were going to offer one of their hot guys, probably Sean Jones out of Gahanna Lincoln. But I think you saw that Ohio State trusted that they liked their chance with Bruce Thornton, and they followed it up and they landed Bruce, which is awesome to see. And I think there was a lot of us that thought, just go ahead and offer Sean Jones. You're not going to get Bruce, but Coach Jake Diebler, credit to him. He currently is the primary recruiter for all 3 recruits in Ohio State 2022 class, which is tops in the country. And he's actually been killing it. Obviously, the brother of John Diebler, so. And he'll tell you that he's the better shooter of the brothers, and I don't know if I believe that. I talked to Bowen Hardman, who says that he could beat Coach Diebler. Eugene also said that he could beat Coach Diebler. So that's something maybe we got to get on video and figure out how that goes. But huge pickup for Ohio State and Bruce Thornton out of Milton, Georgia. Hopefully we can get down to go see him this season. I think they just started up down there in Georgia. They play on one of the better public school teams, and this is just a huge pickup all around. One of the top recruits. I think he's tied for ranking-wise in the 24/7 Sports Composite, specifically with Malachi Branham and both DJ Carden at their rankings as Chris Holman's highest recruit ever, which is great to hear. Other than that, I got to go see Bowen Hardman the other day against Moeller High School. For those of you that know Ohio high school basketball, Moeller is the cream of the crop. I think they probably would have won their 3rd straight Division I Ohio State title in basketball last year, and they'll likely win another one. But Bowen and his Princeton team went toe-to-toe with them. And it was really honestly a slow game for Bowen. He went 0 for 10 the first half, with a lot of those shot attempts coming from 3-pointers. And I think that sounds horrible to sit there and say that he went 0 for 10, but I think it's something that we got to look at. Last year on the team that he played on, he just didn't get a lot of shot attempts. It was just they had a lot of seniors that wanted their shots that he just didn't get them. So it was good to see Bowen get. I believe he got 20 attempts on the night. Let me double check. He got 19 attempts. He went 4 for 19, 2 for 12 from 3, which are horrible numbers when I look at it. And I'll agree to that. But he also had 7 points from the free throw line. And this was the only guy that Moeller knew they had to stop. After that, Princeton was going to struggle. And they still kept it close. There's times where it looked like they might win. I think Ohio State is getting – I think you're getting sort of a Justin Orange with more versatility and a little more effort consistently in Bowen. And I think it's a great fit to go along with a guy like we talked about with Bruce and Roddy Gale, who Bowen is the guy that needs somebody that sort of helps him get set up in the offense and gets him the ball. I think Bruce can do that. I think Roddy can do that. I think all three of those guys will fit great together. Ohio State's backcourt in the 2020 Duke basketball class is off to a great start. But that's all we really had. Matt's going to be checking out the Michigan State game from New Jersey this weekend. Let's see how Larry Johnson does as a head football coach, because that'll be interesting. Other than that,
Mick, I had a quick recruiting question. Chet Holmgren, obviously the number 1 recruit in the country for the 21 class, and I know he's got a little relationship going with Coach Holtman. Anything that Buckeye fans should know about? Is there any potential that we get the number 1 recruit in the country for 2021?
So the idea really is that it comes down to Gonzaga, who he is high school teammates with Jalen Suggs. They were very close. Obviously, Jalen is succeeding very well at Gonzaga early on, and so that gives him the lead. They've done very well with guys like Drew Timme after Ohio State recruited at Gonzaga. I've never gotten to personally talk to Chet, but it seems like they're the team people most connect with him, and he's another guy that's going to have G League options. He's going to have the option to go pro at whatever he wants to do. But I think he's another guy that values education, and he values the time to develop in college. And I think outside of Gonzaga, I think you see Ohio State right behind them. It's the same case with a guy like Charles Bediako, who's Ohio State's probably right near in the top 2 or 3, 4. Same with Efton Reed. I think you could say Ohio State may lead for Efton Reed, considering the fact that Michigan was able to get a 7-foot center who was really his other top target for Efton Reed. The big thing with all 3 of those guys really is a pro option is very much a realistic thing, as it is with most 5-stars nowadays. I think we'll just sort of have to see. Chet is probably the best player in the country ranking wise, and I got to talk to somebody that is close to the Ohio State program. They absolutely love that kid. They're on that kid hard, and obviously he'd be a game changer. One thing I do want to mention, and since you asked about him, the huge thing is Ohio State's staff did this very well. They got a lot of guys on campus beforehand. And Chet got to see an Ohio State football game last year, so he's already been to campus, which is huge. He won't get to visit another time likely before he signs, even though he'd probably sign in the spring signing period. And he's visited Gonzaga as well. He's visited Minnesota, but I think it's really shaping up to be Ohio State, Gonzaga, and probably a pro option. Maybe one of the Blue Bloods jumps in because they always seem to jump in later, but maybe one of those options. Other than that, I don't know if there's much to say about Chet, but I think Ohio State is very much bullish on their chances, I think, of being up there on his list. That's the best I can say for it right now.
Yeah, looking at 24/7 right now, when you look at the offers, it goes for Duke, Texas, Ohio State, Purdue, North Carolina, Maryland, Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, Georgia, Florida, Baylor, Auburn, Michigan, Gonzaga. I mean, this dude's got everything. Everyone coming after him. So it's obviously a tough task for Ohio State to potentially get Chet. I was just wondering, Ohio State, they're not used to getting the number 1 recruit in basketball per se. We are more used to getting that in football. Just wondering if there was any chance that we could see Holmgren land in Columbus for next year.
There's a greater than 0 shot is the best way I'll put it. Other than that, hopefully you guys got to see him play against Imani Bates last month. It was a great game, and I think one thing that separates Chet, he's very interesting to just watch because he's so lengthy and so lean, but he's very aggressive and he's very confident, very assertive on the court, which you don't always see with 5-star guys. Their basketball comes easy to them, so they're very nonchalant. Chet is not that way. He wants to succeed at all levels, and I think that's something that separates Chet. Hopefully Ohio State can continue to improve their chances. Other than that, thank you guys for tuning into the second episode of Anything But Football. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully the Michigan State game gets off the ground this weekend. Fingers crossed. And let's just hope that Ohio State beats Alabama A&M as well. It's going to be a good weekend for some Ohio State sports. Thank you, guys.